Adam Bandt, thank you for opening your doors to Africa Media Australia. And we would like to talk to you about police dealings with African youth groups, as well as the representation or misrepresentations of Africans in the media. As you would know, and you attended the forum that Africa Media Australia organized, and there's a degree of concern, I mean a lot of concern, even anger, from members of the African communities that they are not being treated appropriately by the police. And the thing that sparked this last episode of concern and anger is the publication by The Age of Deputy Police Commissioner statements in relation to Africans. What do you think about this whole thing?
Thanks. So I'm the member for Melbourne, which, as well as being the deputy leader of the Greens, but my electorate of Melbourne spans out to Ascot Vale on one side and Richmond on the other, and it's all the inner northern suburbs in between. So Collingwood, Fitzroy, Carlton, North Melbourne, West Melbourne, Flemington, where I live, Kensington, all of those suburbs are in my electorate. And I'm concerned. I was a bit worried about the publication and the reporting of it in that way. I think there's, if we're going to have a discussion about this topic broadly as a society, then we need to have a discussion and get some facts on the table about policing methods. It's been regularly reported to me, especially by young people, that they feel that they're more often stopped and searched than white people. And we need to have we also, if we're going to talk about statistics, we need to look at the statistics around higher unemployment rate and underemployment as well as unemployment, and look at what the causes for that might be and the causes that lie in the community that are perhaps racism and discrimination, if we're to have a wide-ranging discussion. And I think it is something we should talk about, but I'm concerned that reporting statistics like that, assuming they're accurate, without that broader context and a broader discussion is harmful.
And do you agree that there are grounds at least to call for something much bigger to be looked at in terms of how African communities are being policed?
I think so. Look, I know that there's members of the Victorian Police Force who take this very seriously and who are thinking about this themselves, and I know that they're in dialogue with a number of community leaders. But I also know that there are, youth advocacy groups that I talk to, for example, who show me the statistics about policing and how often they're stopped and so on, and they're frustrated, and I think rightly so. And I do think that there is cause for a broader discussion, and of course, it comes on top of deaths in recent times that have left large sections of the community wondering what happened, still without an answer. And I think in that atmosphere, what we do need is greater dialogue and understanding, not selective publication.
And I know it's not necessarily a sort of a federal issue, because it's more, Victoria and Victoria government, but are you sort of prepared to put whatever weight you have into sort of having this conversation? Yeah,
absolutely. And look, in following the death of young Michael, I had previously written to the Victorian Police, and I've attended meetings and expressed a willingness to do it again. Yes, it's a state policing issue, but I think on this, I'm the representative of a large number of people in my electorate, and it's my job to assist them and represent them, whether it's a federal, state or a local issue.
A few years ago, still at the time of John Howard's government, Kevin Andrew made some statements about Sudanese that was widely criticized as inappropriate. And you would think that, politicians or people in position of power would learn from that, but it sort of keeps happening, even though the statement from the Deputy Police Commissioner is not necessarily exactly the same as Kevin Andrews. But is it the case that maybe we're not learning?
Yeah, I think that's a good observation. When that happened, I joined with a couple of other African community leaders, Burhan Ahmed and a Kochman I am from the Sudanese Lost Boys, to go and make a public statement, and we addressed the media to talk about it. And it's died down a little bit since then, but let's remember as well that happened soon after a Sudanese boy had been killed by white people. And there is the federal minister out there, just appalling anyway, but especially appalling after that. And I think it's a case of never learn. I think there's a case of some people will always feel that there's votes in banging the racist drum and so on. But I would like to think that, especially in Melbourne, in Greater Melbourne, that we have a different tradition, and that there's a better side in human nature that we can appeal to. And I think most of the time we do, but maybe we're not doing a good enough job at it.
All right. And what is attached to this issue is obviously the media reporting of, because there's the statement from the police itself, and there's the actual piece of reporting that was put by the Age. What do you think of the actual quality of that article itself?
Look, I was concerned, again, for the reasons that I said. I think it should have been put in a broader context. And I must say, I think the media is, and so the more responsible media is, I think, grappling with this and isn't yet sure what to do. You may remember that about a month or so before that, maybe even a little bit longer, there was another article where some young people, some of whom live in my electorate of Melbourne, said, look, we're concerned that we might end up with London-style riots now here in Melbourne. Now, I don't think people are about to take to the streets and overturn cars and burn them, but I understand the level of frustration that's being expressed. Now, that should have been discussed and reported responsibly, and it should have prompted a community discussion about, well, why are these young people so frustrated? What's going on? What's happening? And instead, we had a discussion about whether there were going to be riots or not. And I think that's the wrong discussion. So I think we haven't yet got it right as a community about how to have that discussion.
Do you agree that the media is significantly to blame into this whole thing? Because obviously there are people out there on whatever position of power who may have different reasons why they need to play the racist drum, you say, but if they're being, the media is giving them that sort of access to make these views open, that they also are really significantly to blame?
I think they play a part in it, and I think some more than others. Some will always try and whip it up and just don't care about the consequences. But I do think, as I said, that the more responsible section of the media still hasn't worked out how to have the conversation and how to report it and how to deal with it. Because on the one hand, they want to talk about crime and statistics and so on, and yet on the other hand, they will, I think in good faith, report about some of the employment difficulties or some of the other difficulties. I just don't think that they yet, I think the problem is that they don't yet grasp the nature or the sources of the problem, and I think if you did that, you'd have a different discussion about it. And
how do you, what would you suggest to them to be able to get that right?
I think they need to accept that it is it's not an African problem, it's a broader social problem, right? And I think if they started from that perspective and said, this is going on in society, what are we going to do about it? Let's talk to the people who've got different ideas about what to do about this. That would be a more responsible way of reporting it and a more responsible way of having the discussion. But I don't think that they yet think about it that way.
And do you also think, or rather, what do you think about the responsibility of the African communities themselves in addressing some of these issues? Because there are some underlying issues. What do you think the communities should do to kind of be part of the solution?
Well, my experience is that people are doing a lot already. Like I'm just incredibly impressed by the level of organisation and level of care and level of concern and the level of intelligence from the people that I speak to who are already fully aware that this is an issue and are thinking now, well, what can we do? What's the best way to deal with it? And I know people are having discussions about that all the time, about what's the best way to, should we go down this road or should we go down that road? I don't think one could really ask a lot more. Like, I think it's kind of now over to us.
And one thing that was apparent at the last forum we organised, many youth appear to express the feeling that they feel they are not supported in what they're doing. They really have the motivation to improve their lives, to make a difference in the community, but they're not getting the support. Is that your experience as well?
Yeah, it is. Like the level of volunteer work without resources that's being done by community leaders is astounding. And I think one of the things that I'm pushing for is greater, at least government support at the start for building some of that capacity, because there are people who are working full-time plus to work for the benefit of their community who are doing it for no money at all. And there's people will always do things voluntarily, but there should be more paid capacity in there as well. And also, yeah, I mean, it's frustrating to go through study and go through and get your degree and then find that it's still then you're not applying for jobs or you're not getting the pathways that had been expected. Like, I think there is a lack of support there.
And do you think maybe finally that with regards to the last point you make about employment, that maybe we should look at some sort of affirmative action type of solution for employment? Yeah,
maybe. I mean, my mind's not closed to that, but I think that the first thing is to, well, someone described it to me as there's a fence in between the jobs, the people who are wanting the jobs, and there's just a fence there at the moment. And what do we need to do to remove that, work out how to get through it? And I think, as I've said, a large part of the problem, the biggest part, lies on the side of the employer side. And maybe we need affirmative action. Probably we need, and maybe we do, especially in the public service, but probably, certainly in the private sector, we need to find some big employers who are willing to take a leadership role. We need to educate employers about their responsibilities, because we've already got laws, we just need to enforce them. And I think the main thing then is to put more effort into making sure that people don't give up hope. That, to me, is the most heartbreaking thing, is when people say, "Oh, I've just tried and tried. Why should I bother?" And if I was in their shoes, I'd do the same. You know? Okay,
Adam Bandt, we really thank you for your time today to Africa Media Australia, and we hope to maybe see you again for another interview at a later stage.
Great. Thanks very much.
Thank you.